This song alone is the primary reason why it made me want to pick up this game. I did not know what to expect from this, since I have never played any of the Final Fantasy games, so I was almost blind to it. Now, I say almost, since I have seen Final Fantasy VII Advent Children animated movie and enjoyed it very much. It is important for me to clarify that I will not be talking about the story itself, so you don't have to worry about the spoilers. But also, I will not be showing later parts of the game either. Now, this game, how it takes on itself, is a pure epicness with its actions, story, and of course, animations. The game is a lot more linear than I have expected. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, there are these routes that you can take if you want to, but of course they are nothing really substantial. Sometimes there's an opportunity when you divert yourself, you can find these lucky materias or some of the resources. Now, they can be simply laying around there or guarded by some of the enemies or the creatures too. Perhaps I should give an example similarity to whatever linear approach it is. I would say Code Vein and maybe also The Last of Us. Also, do not expect this game to be anything like an open world element, because that totally is not it. All of these sections are carefully made in advance, so it helps you to keep track where you need to go next. So in fact, you rarely will get lost if at all. Now, the puzzles-like areas are simplistic, and I think they're pretty fun. I need to talk about the additional features. Each sector actually has minigames that you can participate in, and they can be varied. One to a dart game, another to a gym. They're like timing moments when you need to use your analog sticks or button pressing. There's also dancing, and way more. This is a Final Fantasy story, so there will be some quirky moments when you should be sympathizing with the characters, but instead it feels very cheesy or even overly done sometimes. But there are legitimate emotional moments as well, and they are very well done too. Characters, in my opinion, are all interesting, and they all get their deserved time. I personally really like their development, but Aerith and Tifa, it's a nice competition. I highly do not recommend also playing this game on easy difficulty, since it was way too easy even for me that has never played any of the other Final Fantasy games before. Now, the reason is you will only end up mashing the buttons and slashing away anything that moves without having to learn the strategic component of the game's combat. It's just missing out the best part of the game as well. So regarding the combat, it's actually amazing, especially with the group, when you actually can strategize who uses what and what moment as well. Now, there are cooldowns for specific attacks or abilities, and every character has it. But when executing all of the abilities at the same time on one boss is simply amazing. It may sometimes seem OP as well. Now, the bosses are actually varied too. I didn't encounter any boss that had some of the same patterns. All of them were different and looked very unique as well. Definitely need to mention the dodging mechanic. Now, that's a little bit finicky. When you actually try to dodge an attack that's coming for you, even on time, no matter what, you will still get hit. Blocking with your sword works, but only when you do it beforehand, or you will just not block at all. I feel like there needs to be more improvements on that. Customization. Now, you can have different weapons for each characters. You can equip any materia, since this materia gives you abilities during the combat to pull off. One can be shooting a fire magic for a distance advantage. Others can be like enhancing your attacks. Of course, we cannot forget summoning, that you can actually summon, for example, Shiva to aid in combat. Again, like I have mentioned, that pretty much everything is on cooldown, so you cannot really spam it. Also, regarding the visual customization, now I did not notice anything drastical, for example like changing your clothes, but I'm sure it's actually somewhat existent in this game, because I would love to see Cloud to look like from the Advent Children animated movie, that kind of clothing style. That looked awesome. Now, for the side quests, few of them are literally fetch quests, while some others are definitely not. And they also have a different story to tell, and actually pretty good. Even though they're not exactly as fluently rendered with the cutscenes by the comparison of the main quest as an example. After completing the side quest, you actually have an option to automatically return to the original contractors. This makes it that you don't actually have to backtrack, and I think that's a big plus in my book. You also unlock fast traveling later down the game, but you will need to pay with Jill, unless, I'm not gonna say it, you have to experience that for yourself. Now, this is important for me to clarify. I don't know if this can be countered as a negative, but I definitely noticed it. It overstays its welcome quite a few times, and it tends to drag along the encounters. Feels like one of the moments when it's about to end, but no, it just doesn't. It just continues on and on and on. Some may consider this a negative. I don't know what to consider that. It's just a feature, maybe positive or negative, that's up to you to decide. Some might worry about the game having too many cutscenes. Well, I'm very happy to say that the amount of the stuff that you can do is very big, so I don't think you have to concern about the cutscenes since there's a lot of gameplay as well. For those who are worried about the episodic nature of the game, since the Square Enix actually has mentioned that this is going to be a parter, so part 1, 2, perhaps maybe up to 3, we do not know about that. But if Square Enix will go similar to the scope, then you have absolutely nothing to worry about, because the story itself is already worth the full price easily. It's a giant caliber scope of a game, and sometimes you might even consider, should this even be worth $60 and not more? Now, it did take me 27 hours to finish this game. That is including all of the main story quests and also including around 15 to 20 side missions as well. When you finish the game, you actually get options to replay any of the chapters, while using the current loadout, experience, resources too. So this also invites you to revisit certain areas perhaps that you never got a chance to see or completed the other side quests. So I guess you can call that a replayability as well, but not to extent of the end game content though. So perhaps that can be taken as a negative. You can also participate in the arena and in the combat simulator by choosing difficulties and enemies to fight as well. Should perhaps mention that also when you complete the story, you do not get to free roam the world again unless you choose a chapter to replay. You also, by the way, unlock a hard difficulty as well with some additions in it, but don't consider them more of a substantial, at least I do not believe so. Now, if I would have to give this game a score rating, I would definitely give it a 9 out of 10. I'm also pretty confident to say that this game is a Game of the Year contender as well for 2020. Well, this was my review. I do apologize, I did not end up going with a big review scale that I usually do or I can make. I wanted to bring this review as quickly as possible, so I wanted to have a bit of a bullet points and summarizations as well, what I have experienced. Again, I did not specifically mention any spoilers. Perhaps if you would like me to, I can do that. It's not a problem, but later down the line. Alright, well then, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe to see you guys all later. And as always, have a good one.